How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm just looking at your toys.
It's a matte painting. It's not real.
Is it not?
I like having the stuff behind me because no one wants to see my face. I think they'd rather see the toys while I'm asking questions.
Is that Ninja Gacha Man?
Yeah. By the way, the other thing I have for the Gotcha Man stuff, I'm waiting for Hollywood to do something with this.
Yeah.
It's like with Force 5 and Grandizer and Guy King. These are great properties that have never been mined.
Wasn't there? There was quite a good CG version in the early 2000s, wasn't there? That they did. I think I saw a clip or a trailer for it or something. But
Yeah, but I mean, I think that, like there's been a lot of talk about Kira, or there's been talk of Robotech.
mm,
And these are cool things that now technology, I think, could allow you to tell these stories in live action.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I came to it through Battle of the Planet, so it's slightly different.
No, I watched Battle of the Planets as well. We're on the same page. So because I have a few minutes with you, during the pandemic, I ask everyone the first few questions.
Yeah.
What TV series would you love to guest, write, and direct?
Battlestar Galactica.
Nice. By the way,
But
that's
I wouldn't want to because I would rather watch it than with them doing it than me do it.
sure. I would love to see your Battlestar Galactica, though.
I do a guest episode of it. I don't think I would want the full control over it because that's the fun of it, is watching that vision of it was brilliant.
What movie or movies do you think you've seen the most?
Blade Runner.
Is that one of these things you've seen like 20 times or more?
Yeah, endlessly watch it.
Have you seen, I'm assuming you've watched all the various versions.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
The director's cut first version before they started tinkering with it with CG.
Got it. Is this one of these things where when you're going to turn it on, do you purposely watch different versions, or will you just watch that version again and again?
I think I just watched that version again and again, to be honest. But I don't know. Maybe I'm watching the last, because I'm watching streaming now instead of watching the disc, so I've got like so many. I've got it on all the different formats as well. So it's kind of. But now because I'm lazy, I'll watch the easiest version of it.
Like you, I love Blade Runner. Are you a fan of 2049?
I'm a not as much as the original.
Got it. I thought that Denis did a really good job with 2049, and Deacon cinematography elevates it to, it's just beautiful to look at.
Yeah, well, I just got the storyboard book, and that just came out yesterday, didn't it? I think, which is really interesting, and been going through all that.
I'll move on to my last thing before we talk about your movie. If you could get the financing for anything tomorrow, any project you want to make, what would you make and why?
Tomorrow, I don't know. I mean, I'm contracted, so I can't do anything tomorrow. So I'd have to do it in 2023.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. It would, and that would really depend on my mood at the time and what. It's tricky because I think having all the money in the world to do stuff makes you outside of the flow of culture. And in a way, like all these movies that we liked from the past, they were made under a financial and cultural imperative. It wasn't that they were just people being given stashes of money that they suddenly could do whatever they wanted. So I think it would be dangerous to do that. In a way, you want to work within the culture and see what the shape of things are before you would make something. So it's not as simple as just getting a load of cash and bashing something out. It's much more reading what's around you and where there's a hole for something to fit.
Completely. Jumping into why I get to talk to you today, really enjoyed this movie. As usual, I had to turn away from the screen, I think 3 times, possibly 4,
Right.
because of certain visuals that you depicted. So
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for that. So I'm curious, with this had to have been a challenging movie to make due to trying to make it during COVID. And I'm curious, how did the filming process during the pandemic impact possibly the film you're making in terms of being able to pull off a certain camera shot or being able to go to a certain location? Can you sort of talk about how COVID impacted the actual storytelling?
A lot of movies I've made have been like pragmatic. You know, you work from what you've got rather than a blue sky situation where you go, you write your thing and then you try and finance your dream, you know, and you get it done. It's a different way of thinking, you know. And so if you're working from in genre at low budget and independent, then you kind of, and I've done this for all the movies. You know, I start with a kind of a canvas that I know I can get, rather than what, you know, that something that I can hope I can get. So with this, because of COVID, we realized that a film set indoors was probably not going to work, because of it won't be safe for the crew at the time when we filmed it. And I was talking to people about how stuff indoors was being filmed, and they were having like these kind of antiseptic foggers and wiping down all the surfaces and all this kind of stuff. And that level of hygiene was not going to be something that we could do on the budget that we were working at. So that was always the case. It was going to be outside. Having said that, the actual way the film was shot and the pace it was shot at and the way I interacted with the crew and the cast didn't change. There was nothing about COVID that affected that. We might have had 200 grand more money to spend on stuff if I hadn't had to spend it on hand sanitizer and masks and all that kind of stuff that doesn't get on screen, you know, which is a small dagger in my heart. But then the other thing is that's all there to make sure that, you know, it would have been the worst thing in the world if anyone had been sick from making this film, you know, and we were really, really careful about how we did it in that respect. But in the end of the day, you know, wearing masks and keeping distance, a reasonable amount of distance, and keeping in a bubble was not any kind of aggravation. You know, it wasn't, I would be a very, you know, I'd get no sympathy as a filmmaker trying to make a case for how hard it was. You know what I mean?
I understand. What with this story and this film, was this an idea that you've been kicking around for a while, or can you sort of talk about the genesis of the idea and why you wanted to tell this story?
It's all brand new. You know, I think I started writing it almost exactly a year ago to the release date. You know, so when it comes out in the cinemas, I would have first got on the plastic piano and started writing it. So, which is pretty quick. And it was mainly down to, like, I wanted to make something. I figured that once once lockdown had happened, that was basically the end of that world that we'd been in. It is over, you know, it's finished. It's kind of, now we're in a new world. And any script that you had that was about that old world and all the stuff about that old world is kind of over and dead, you know, and everything had to be moving forward from that position. So, and I've always wanted to make stuff that had that contemporary edge, but also that if I'm making horror, I want it to be political but also deal with real life things around us, which is, you know, something that I'd gotten from reading George Romero interviews. You know, this is something that horror does. It's a way. It's a kind of way of a prism for looking at what's happening to us in the moment. You know, and it's weird. It's like people talk about pandemic movies, but this is just a movie about now. This is it. This is happening. You know, so it's kind of that. So there was that side of it, and what I wanted. The other things that had kind of gone into it was that I wanted to make another horror film. I wanted to go back to to make something that was in relationship to the other movies that I'd made, like Field in England and Kill List. I wanted to play in that kind of pool again of things, and but I'd also I was looking at kind of my relationship as well to what folk horror was, you know, and what it had become since Kill List, because it wasn't really even a subgenre at that point, you know, or wasn't recognized as one. You'd have the three big movies, but they weren't like Blood and Satan's Claw and Wicker Man, and but it was like that, you know, that I'd made films that were seen as folk horror movies, but they hadn't. But I'd made them kind of automatically, almost without knowing. It was more about a kind of my own understanding of what it was to be British, rather than it was a specific thing about cinema. You know what I mean? But this movie is more about that, of trying to understand, you know, within it you have kind of a position of kind of magic and folk, and then a position of science, and then these things are merged over the top of each other.
How much do you debate what your opening shot is going to be and what your closing shot is going to be in a movie? Do you find yourself like really debating that, or do you, in the writing process, do you sort of know it?
The opening shot, yeah, sometimes, but the ending is always a nightmare, because the ending of the film is all important. You know, that's the thing. That's the takeaway usually. It's a weird thing of like a memory kind of recedes, so you kind of you remember a film almost backwards, and that's the kind of thing that makes your judgment on it. So a bad last 10 minutes can destroy a film completely, you know. And so the pressure really is on those things to be as concise and right as possible. The beginning of a film is a, well, you've got basically, I feel anyway, that you have a certain amount of time with the audience where they give you the benefit of the doubt anyway. So you can be a bit more loose at the beginning of a film in a way that you just can't be at the end, you know.
You wrote and directed, but you also edited this movie. And I'm curious, in the editing room, did you make any discoveries that you weren't expecting in the writing process and the directing? Could you sort of talk about, because editing is the final rewrite?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's more usually, it's about compression, and it's like, it's a bargain, it's a kind of gamble that you take with the script, is that you've got a certain amount of information to pass to the audience. Do they need to know it all? And can you want to have as little as that information in the script? But if you take too much of it out, then the film becomes harder and harder to understand. And then your audience becomes smaller and smaller, down to the really incredibly intuitive people who can just understand anything. And then it, blossoms out from that to the whole audience, So it's kind of, that side of it is, that's where the edit is. You kind of go, oh, this scene's too long, and you compress it, and then go, oh, now the film doesn't make any sense. So then it has to kind of expand back out again. And that's that argument of how much of it can you chip away till you get it to its leanest state, basically.
How long did you have? A much longer cut of this movie? Or was it very, like, a lot of deleted scenes, or was it very similar to the final length?
No, it's exactly, there was there a scene, a couple of scenes went out of it, but nothing. And certainly enough. I mean, I'm never a fan of deleted scenes, so I don't really keep track of any of that stuff, because it's always, it's like when you watch a film, it's really great, and then you go, oh, what else is on the disc? Oh, deleted scenes. Oh, and you watch them, you go, oh, I really enjoyed that film, and now I've watched a couple of scenes which are a bit rubbish. Why did I do that to myself? I've slightly ruined the experience, And I think that's it's almost like, it's like being too greedy, isn't it? You've eaten a cake and you want some more cake, and you'll take it from wherever you can get it. And, so I usually I don't think we've ever done deleted scenes on any of the movies. Maybe there's some on Sightseers maybe, but I tend to go, I mean, Amy Jump, who I work with a lot, she always says, never show how the sausage is made, destroy all the evidence.
I see both sides of it, because sometimes I've seen deleted scenes that are quite good, but were cut out for whatever reason. And then I've seen terrible deleted scenes that should never have been shown,
Yeah, so I mean, the things that have cut out of this are just much more explanation, and you kind of go, yeah, well, if there's a portion of the audience that love a bit of explanation, and there's a portion of the audience that hate explanation, and then it's driving that deal between those two parts of the audience, whether who's going to win out.
Before I run out of time with you, I wanted to know, because I was a little bit surprised when you signed on for the Meg 2, because it wasn't what I expected. It was like, I'm like, oh my God, this is a weird and wonderful choice. Can you sort of talk about what drew you to this material?
I mean, I just really love the Meg.
I did too.
This is a common thing when you talk to people. They go, I really love the Meg, and they go, yes, I did too. it's a film that has a lot of friends, you know, and it was, you know, I usually just go with my gut. So if something comes across my, you know, from my agent, and I like it, then I just go for it. So this came up and just went, whoa, Christ, Meg 2, I'll do that. That's brilliant.
Can you talk a little bit about where you are in the actual development process? Do you have a script? Are you getting ready to film at a certain point?
There's story. I've got, yeah, they've been, you know, they've got a script, and we've been doing storyboards for 3-4 months now. So there's lots and lots and lots of work's been done.
Are you planning on filming this year?
I don't know. I don't know what the ins and outs of the meggage is at the moment.
Got it. Can you promise that Jason Statham will punch a shark in the face?
Punch a shark in the face? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I think wrestling with it and holding its fins back maybe is but yeah, I think it, you know, they're big boots to fill. You know, the last film was excellent, so it's kind of, we don't want to disappoint any Meg fans, that's for sure.
I have to stop there, and I'm just going to say that I really am looking forward to your take on that material, and I really enjoyed In the Earth, and obviously I'm a big fan of your work, and anything I can do on Collider to help support it, please let me know.
Thank you so much.